without further ado, welcome to the Meetup Spot, Karissa.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, are you ready? Are you ready for the questions?
Yeah, sure, we can get started.
Okay. All right. First, tell me about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a dietitian. I've done a lot of things in my life before getting here, but that's what I'm doing right now. Um, when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a research scientist. So I started out on that track initially. Like, I went to the University of Alberta for biochemistry, and then I did grad school at McMaster University, also in biochemistry. But when I was doing grad school, I realized that I didn't want to be a scientist just in terms of like what I wanted my life to look like. So I thought about what I wanted to do. I was interested in working in healthcare, but I didn't want to be a doctor because I would have had to have, written the MCAT and gone to med school and all that stuff. So dietitian was ultimately what I set on. And then, I've been working in different areas in nutrition for the last few years.
Okay, so you're saying you worked in so how did you make the transition to a dietitian? Okay, like I mean, how did you find out how'd you find out that you want to be a dietitian?
Well, I think I thought about the things that I like doing. So when I was in grad school, I really liked giving presentations. I really liked giving some education for background and then talking about my experiments and my results. I really enjoyed that aspect. And the reason why I got into research was because I wanted to help people. And it's not that research doesn't help people, it's just that it usually takes like decades before it actually helps anybody. When you start with a concept that you're researching, it takes a long time before it gets put into practice. So, those were things that I kept in mind. I always cared about nutrition. Like starting in high school, I started caring about nutrition, but then I cared about it even more in grad school because I got diagnosed with celiac disease around that time. And then also in my research group, we worked on the gut and like the microbiome. And we saw how things like your weight and your diet affected your microbiome, and your microbiome affected a lot of aspects of your health. So a lot of those things impacted me. And also, like I kind of mentioned before with the doctor thing, I wanted to do a job that was satisfying and challenging, but also I wanted to have work-life balance. So I find that I have that as a dietitian because I'm not working like 12 or 16-hour shifts.
Okay. And you mentioned experiments. Can you tell me what kind of experiments did you do?
Sure, yeah, it's been a little bit since I've done that stuff, but my thesis supervisor, he worked on the microbiome in a couple areas of the body. So he actually used to be at the U of C, and he was working on cystic fibrosis and the microbiome in people who have the lung microbiome specifically, and people who have cystic fibrosis. So that was kind of more my project. I was working on some bacteria that had been isolated from patients who had cystic fibrosis and seeing what are the pathogenic factors that these bacteria have that's helping them to cause infections. And then when he moved to McMaster, he did a lot more of the gut stuff. So there was a lot of people in my lab who worked on the microbiome in people with IBS, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. Um, so it was all having to do with bacteria human cell interactions.
Okay, bacteria human cells interactions. All right. Okay, so tell me your growing up story.
Sure. So I lived in a couple places when I was growing up. I was born in Medicine Hat, and then when I was very little, like so little that I don't remember it, my family lived in BC for a little bit in a place called Penticton. And then from there, my family moved to Drumheller, Alberta. So I lived there for most of my childhood, right up until I started the ninth grade. And then my dad got a job in the Northwest Territories in a little town called Hay River. So I went to high school there. And then after that, when I graduated, I went to the U of A.
Okay, so you mentioned Drumheller. You've been to the Tyrell a lot.
You know what? I went to the Tyrell a lot when I was little, and then just recently, like a few months ago, like I think around April, I went back. So it changed a lot. I mean, some of the key exhibits are the same, but it was really interesting to walk around and be like, oh yeah, I remember this exhibit, or like this is new to me. Yeah.
Okay, and okay, so so you grew up celiac. So you grew up with celiac. What's it like?
Well, I didn't find out that I had celiac disease until I was in my 20s. So it was
Oh,
in grad school. So it's interesting kind of in hindsight to see certain things. Like I had certain health issues. I was had like really big bags under my eyes and I would like get ear infections really often. And I think that kind of could be maybe a little bit connected to the celiac disease. But um, yeah, like my dad's Italian, so I grew up eating pasta once a week, every week. And for some reason, with celiac disease, everyone is a little bit different and their symptoms are a bit different. So some kids, they're really, really skinny and short, and then that's how they get diagnosed because the doctor figures out, oh, they're not absorbing the nutrients and that's inhibiting their ability to grow. But I seem to be fine. I'm 5'6". So yeah, it's interesting how that worked out that well, what ended up happening was when I was in grad school, I just like my fatigue was super, super bad. Like I would sleep for 8 hours and still feel exhausted. I had really bad iron deficiency, a few other things going on. And luckily, I was working in a lab where they worked on gut stuff because that's where I learned about celiac disease. I didn't know what it was before. And so I was able to kind of piece things together and then ask the doctor to test me for it.
okay. And how are you navigating your life with celiac now?
I think these days it's quite a lot easier. Like, I feel a lot of compassion for people who are older than me, like maybe Gen Xers or baby boomers who have celiac disease, because there's so many more food products that we can have in the grocery store. Things are labeled a lot more clearly, like if it contains wheat. And there's also a lot of restaurant options. So, it's definitely decent. It still is something that always has to be at the front of your mind. Like if there's food around, like if I'm at work and someone brings in food, I always have to say, "Oh, sorry, I can't have it because I have celiac disease." So it's like, the little things. Like it makes life a little less efficient. Like if I'm on a road trip, I can't just pop over to McDonald's and grab a burger. I have to pack something ahead of time. So it does take up mental space, but I'd say at this point, I got diagnosed in my early 20s and now I'm in my early 30s. So it's been a solid 10 years of practice. So I've got a good system down at this point.
Okay. And tell me about this book you did, A Merry Krampus Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. So last summer, I just happened to see on Instagram that this company called Kobo was having a writing contest. So they're kind of like Kindle,
Oh,
where you can read ebooks and listen to audiobooks on there. So I thought I really like writing. It could be a fun challenge. So the competition was for a Christmas rom-com. And they said make it original. And it was a Canadian contest. So I was like, I'll add some maybe Canadian elements to it. So it was not a full novel. It was called a novella. It's, I think, like 100 some pages it turned out in like the ebook format. But in terms of like the inspiration for it, I was just thinking mainly about the multiculturalism in Canada. So like for myself, for example, like part of my heritage is German, so I integrated some German folklore in there. And the main character, she is a second generation Indian immigrant. So integrating some of these, different Canadian flavors in there, and then the basic backdrop was a rom-com.
okay. And how did you come up with a book?
Well, I was just kind of thinking about what might be a little bit different and what might be some of what the same of what people are looking for. Like, I feel like when you create something, you want to give people a little bit of what they want and then a little bit of what you want. So there was the rom-com element. So, I tried to make the dialogue snappy and add in some humor, and there was a romantic relationship at the core of the plot. And so that was kind of what people are expecting and what they're wanting. And I added in like a romantic getaway in the plot as well. But then I added in some of the stuff that I wanted to add into to give it my own unique twist. So um, I focused more ultimately on the main character's friendship with her family, or sorry, her friendships and her relationships with her family. And um, I think also like the German folklore was something that I was able to sneak in an organic way that kind of still fit with the plot. Like, um, well, I can't give much away, but Krampus ends up being a character in the actual plot.
Okay. And who are you now outside being a dietitian?
I think for me, writing is something that is important to me. Like, I do try to write outside of work. Like, for example, I write a column for the Leduc newspaper, and I find that that's a nice way to use my nutrition skills in a creative way because I'm coming up with different ideas for each column and trying to write it in a way that's interesting. I also like to do some recreational writing in my own time. I think that for me, that's a big part of my identity. And other parts of my identity, I would say I'm an animal lover. I really love animals. And I care about the environment, which is kind of also connected to animals as well. Um, yeah, what else? It's it's a hard time to answer that question because I just started a new job right now, so it's kind of been all about my job right now. So, um, but yeah, other than that, I think, I like physical activity, getting out in nature, and I love food. I love cooking and I love going out to eat.
Okay. Okay. So, three things. Are you so you wrote for the Duke newspaper, right? And now that
Yeah.
you're in Calgary, are you thinking of writing for the local newspaper as well?
Well, I'm not sure. I think it might be a little bit harder to get into the Calgary paper. I haven't approached the editor about that with the Leduc paper. Um, the editor liked my writing samples and they were very open to me contributing. It would be interesting. I mean, now that you're mentioning it, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should look into that. It might be a little more competitive. And I'm not sure if in the Calgary Herald if they already have nutrition content, but I could always, that's a good idea. I could look into that. That would look good on a resume too.
Okay. And so since when did you have a love for the animals?
Oh, I think I've always remembered loving animals, especially in the 90s. If you go back and watch 90s movies, they're all these like heartbreaking animal movies where an animal dies or like the dog runs away and then, finally at the end of the movie, the dog and their owner are reunited. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I felt like, I knew I really cared about animals when I was little. Like my family always had a dog when I was growing up. I for a moment, like when I was in kindergarten, grade one, I wanted to be a veterinarian. But then once I found out that the vet has to euthanize dogs, then I decided that wasn't what I wanted to do. But yeah, like for a big portion of my life, like about 8 years, I was a vegetarian. That was before I found out I had celiac disease, and I just found it was a bit too much restriction being a vegetarian on top of gluten-free, but I still eat a lot of plant-based foods and um I still care a lot about animals. There's just something about, I just find when you're an animal lover, there's something about animals. I could be watching a movie and a human gets hurt and I don't care, but if an animal gets hurt, then then I feel sad.
Okay, and okay, so you watch animal movies, but you also watch the Littlest Hobo.
The Littlest Hobo. I feel like I have maybe some vague memories of that. I think that could have been on TV when I was younger. I watched a lot of Lassie. Um, there was one. Let's see if I can Google it. There was this movie. I think it was called Homeward Bound.
Oh,
Yes, yeah. This was like an old school movie, like a 90s movie where um like I don't know if you remember those movies where it would be live action, but then there'd be voiceover done by actors. Anyways, if you have like I'm not sure if it would be on Disney Plus or Prime or whatever, but if that's like some peak 90s nostalgia right there, watching something like Homeward Bound.
okay. Okay, so what's your values, purpose, passion, and strengths?
Well, yeah, that's a very good, like, very deep question. I think for my values, the thing I value most is just treating people in a way that makes me feel proud of myself. So doing things to help people, doing things that support people in achieving their life goals. Um, in terms of my purpose, I think, that's connected to my values, helping people, specifically helping them with their health and their well-being. And what was the last one?
Okay, passion and strengths.
Passion. I think I'm passionate about getting to know people's stories. I think that's something that is very interesting about working in healthcare when you really take the time to build a relationship with your patient. You learn their life story, and I think that it really helps you to connect with the patient, helps you to learn more about them, and also in some ways learn about yourself as well. And my strengths, I think that I'm a very good listener. I think that I'm good with communication. And I think that my compassion is also a strength as well.
Okay, and why do you do what you
Um, well, I think we kind of reviewed that a little bit earlier on in the interview, but specifically the job I have now, I would say the reason why I'm working in the community or like in an outpatient setting is because I like to work with people in their actual everyday lives. So dietitians can work in different settings. We can work in hospitals, in nursing homes, in food service settings. But I like working with people on the day-to-day stuff. Like I don't put people on tube feeds after they've had a surgery or been in an accident or whatever, but I'm talking to people about what they can do on the daily and how those daily habits can accumulate over time to impact their health in a big way. Yeah, yeah, I'd say that's it.
Okay, all right, okay. Seven, how did you get into being a dietitian?
Being a dietitian is a regulated profession, so there's only specific ways that you can do that. So in Ontario, what I had to do was I had to take an accredited program. Like you can't just take a regular nutrition program. It has to be a program that has been approved that meets all the qualifications that you need to have as a dietitian. So I did that at the University of Guelph. And then it has changed since I did my internship. So it used to be that you could do an internship or you could do like a school-based program, like you could do a master's program, um, or like different schools have different accredited programs. Now it has changed in Ontario where it's like part schoolwork, part internship placements, but for me, I did 11 months of different placements in different settings. So, like, I did a public health setting, outpatient placements. I did placements in hospitals, a nursing home, lots of different settings. And then after that, you have to write an exam to show that you have all the knowledge and competence that you need to practice safely. So I wrote that a few months after I finished my internship. And then once you have that, you need to make sure that you renew your permit every year. So you do that with what's called the college. So I don't know the origins of why they call it that, but there's like, the College of Physiotherapists, and there's the College of Dietitians in each province. So you renew your license with them and you set your learning goals for every year, and that's how you keep up your license.
Okay. And was it a hard exam for you?
I would say the main thing is that there's a lot of pressure. Like when you go into the exam, you really don't want to fail because you have to pay a pretty high fee just to write the exam. And then if you fail it a couple of times, then you have to do some things like renew some courses that you've done in school and stuff like that. So I would say mainly there's just a lot of pressure. But when I actually went in and did it, I feel like because I studied so hard and practiced so much that it wasn't too bad. But the interesting thing is to prevent cheating, you are not told what your score is because you could kind of work backwards and be like, oh, okay, I got this one right or wrong. So you write the exam and then they just tell you if you passed or failed.
Okay. And speaking of permits, though, was it always rough for you to renew it every time?
Well, I think a lot of people complain about the renewal process because the fee is pretty high to renew every
Oh,
year. And then you also have to set learning goals. So I think sometimes, like in healthcare, because you feel like you're already doing a lot of work, it can sometimes feel like you're having even more work added onto you. But it's not too bad. Like you can renew it in an afternoon or an evening. It's not too intense.
mhm. Okay. And what attitude or characteristics should a person have to be a dietitian?
That's a great question. I think that in order to be a good dietitian, that you need to have an open mind in order to be flexible with how you counsel your patients because you're going to meet people from different walks of life who've gone through different things. And you always need to keep in mind just because something works for me, or maybe I think something should work for you, that doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. So you really have to go in with an open mind and use really strong communication skills to figure out what your patient's goals are because they might be different from yours. And that way you can come up with an action plan that actually helps them reach their goals. I think also that it's interesting this has actually been studied in scientific articles that it is more common for dietitians to have eating disorders or eating disordered behavior. So I think that a lot of dietitians or people who want to become dietitians need to be aware of that because we don't want to project any eating disorder behavior on our patients. We want them to have a healthy relationship with food. And other than that, I just think in general, to be a healthcare provider, you need to really have a lot of empathy and compassion and be a really great listener.
Got it. And right now, it's tough for people these days to find jobs. If they want to go to the same path as you, what are the things they can do right now to practice?
I think there's lots of opportunities to do nutrition related work. It might not be paid, but you can always do things to build your resume. So, for example, you could volunteer, and there's lots of areas you could volunteer nutrition wise. Like a lot of schools have breakfast and lunch programs. They
Ooh,
just need hands to chop carrots or get sandwiches ready or, just to do that labor. There can also be opportunities at nursing homes or retirement homes, just in terms of helping out with the seniors. There can be, honestly, sometimes you can even just create an opportunity. Like if there's an area you're interested in, for example, when I was doing my last year, of my nutrition program at the University of Guelph. There was a stroke recovery chapter in Guelph where they said they were looking for student volunteers. So I reached out and I said, I'm a nutrition student. I know from my classes that a lot of stroke patients struggle with getting in good nutrition, especially things like protein and fluids. So I could do some kind of nutrition program for the people who are part of that chapter. And they had never thought about that before. Like a lot of times, the students that they had were speech language pathologists or like into physio and stuff. So we created something new that was just from my interest in getting involved. So I think if you have that interest, then you can always do stuff like that. Or like there was also the Leduc paper, it's not a paid position, but I'm getting my name out there and I'm practicing and it's something I can put on my resume. So I think there's always opportunities, but they just may or may not be paid.
Okay. Okay. So nice. Creating an opportunity. That's an interesting idea. Tell me about intuitive eating. Is it something we should do every day?
Yeah, intuitive eating, I really like it a lot for myself, and I use a lot of concepts from it with patients. It's not for everybody, but the basic core of intuitive eating is that we all in our body have an intuition about when to eat, what to eat, and how much to eat. And so there's 10 core principles of intuitive eating, and by working through the core principles, the idea is that you get in tune with your body so that you're able to know what your body needs, and you don't necessarily need to follow a meal plan or have someone tell you what to eat. So it's a very counter ideology to diet culture. But if you're someone who is tired of dieting, like tired of yo-yo dieting, it can be a nice philosophy to follow. Basically, with intuitive eating, you're learning your personal hunger cues that tell you how to eat, or sorry, like when to eat. And then when you're having meals, you're experimenting with combinations of foods to see what makes you feel full. So a lot of times I see patients who maybe eat a lot of carbs and maybe they need to dial back on it. But the way that they deal with that is they say, oh, I'm just never going to eat carbs. And then they go through that yo yo dieting process. Whereas if they were to experiment a bit and go, okay, I'll have a bit of carbs, but then also some vegetables and some protein and some healthy fats, then they might see, actually, I feel a lot better when I do that. And I'm not yo yoing when I structure my meals that way. And then you're learning your fullness cues as well, so that you're not eating when you're not hungry, and you're also not overeating when you're eating. So there's a lot of little things that are part of intuitive eating, but mainly it's getting to know what your body needs, and it's also about having a healthy relationship with food, not thinking about food as good or bad, just as something that gives us the nutrients we need that we can also enjoy. And it's also about having a good relationship with your body. So I find that I like teaching a lot of women and teenage girls that philosophy because there's a lot of pressure to be thin in our society.
Okay. Okay. Is it the same thing with guys as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of men can benefit from intuitive eating as well. Like, I think there's a lot of emphasis right now on having so much muscle and being really lean, but we have to think about whether those standards are realistic for the average person. So I think the concept of body acceptance, I think, can be for anybody. Like, we all need to be at peace with our body.
Okay. 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 So, okay. In your, I mean, considering that we are Toastmasters, you talked about this in your Chaparral or Okotoks speech. Okay. So about that, what's a primary care network?
Hmm. And there's this analogy that I heard a couple of years ago when I was working for a primary care network in Mississauga, and I really liked that analogy, so I'll probably just use that today. So, if we think of healthcare in the community as a wheel, the primary care network would be the hub. It would be at the center of the wheel. And then all the doctors' offices in the community would be the spokes. So there's lots of different doctors in the city and in the county who see patients for medical reasons, but there might be services that the patient can benefit from that the physician doesn't do. So the physician doesn't do physiotherapy, they don't do social work, they don't do nutrition therapy, but having those services for their patient could really help them with whatever medical issue the doctor is seeing them for. So that's where the primary care network comes in. We're the hub of the wheel. We have the physiotherapists, the social workers, the dietitians. So all the doctors in the community can refer patients to the primary care network, and that way the patient is getting holistic care, but they're still able to see the same consistent doctor.
Okay, and if you don't mind, we only have less than 10 minutes left now. So I think I don't think we're gonna finish all the questions. So I'm gonna pick one that's gonna be good. And here's I guess two questions. It should be fine. One is how are they important?
I
Why are
think
they important?
Yeah, I think I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier about helping people in their everyday lives. So when someone is in the hospital, there usually is a very serious issue why they're there. And so, it's important that they're getting that care. But most people are in the hospital short term. Or for a lot of us, like, I've never been in the hospital. I don't know if you've been in the hospital, right? It's like we want
I've
to
been a
make sure that
scholarly.
people who are not in the hospital are still getting health care. So with a primary care network, people are able to get services that are serving them in their everyday life that are helping to also like keep them out of the hospital, right? Like if someone has diabetes and they're seeing someone in a primary care network, by improving their blood sugar values, that reduces their chances that they're going to get serious infections or need amputations or have serious issues that land them in the hospital. So, um, I think anybody who has any kind of nutrition concern or needs physiotherapy or needs to see a social worker, they can benefit from being referred to a primary care network.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, and sorry for interrupting you
Oh,
earlier.
that's okay. Sorry, I kind of missed what you said, but
Yeah, well, yes, 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 I've been in hospital because of my scoliosis surgery, and yes, and I also mentioned Stollery because that's where I had my scoliosis surgery.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, some people in their 20s and 30s have been in the hospital, but I think most from my experience in my hospital placements, most of the patients are over 50 or over 60.
Oh,
So we want to make
wow.
sure that people are getting healthcare before they are that age, right? Because then we can do a lot of preventative care or manage conditions so that it doesn't get so severe.
Okay, and I think we have 6 minutes, 6 minutes left. I think we have time for a few questions, plus the last segment. Here we go. Why are dietitians important?
Dietitians are important for pretty much any health or wellness related reason. So I think that a lot of people think that dietitians are just for making meal plans and maybe more in private practice. That's why you would see a dietitian. But there's lots of other reasons to see a dietitian. If you have diabetes, high blood pressure, if you're preparing to get pregnant, if you are pregnant, there's also people who have, like, for example, sometimes I see patients who have trouble putting on weight for different reasons, or if you are overweight or have obesity, you can see a dietitian. I would say most health issues can be improved in some way, maybe not completely improved, but at least a fraction improved with solid nutrition. So even something like anxiety, I have seen patients where having consistent nutritious meals helps with their anxiety because they're not on a blood sugar roller coaster all day. So lots of people can benefit from seeing a dietitian.
Okay, and how important is nutrition in people's lives?
I would say it's very important. I think our nutrition, like our physical health, is connected also to our mental health. So even if you are feeling like you're fairly healthy, nutrition can still be important for you in terms of just maintaining, right? Like we want to make sure that we're doing things to prevent health issues. And then if you do have a health issue, like for me, I have my celiac disease, nutrition really helps me to stay healthy because if I was still eating gluten, I would have a lot of health issues. So um, I think that it benefits everybody. Maybe how much it's benefiting you right now in your life might vary depending on if you have a condition or not. But we do all get older, and we do know that solid nutrition earlier in life sets us up to age a bit more gracefully.
Okay. And okay, that's it for the questions. Let's end it with the last segment, quick fire. So the goal is quick fire is to answer as many questions in under 90 seconds. Uh, forgot to prepare that. Forgot to prepare the timer here. If you don't mind. Okay, gotta be quick. Okay, so here we go. Are you ready, Carissa?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Here we go. Here we go. Okay, first, my mantra in life.
My mantra right now is let them.
Oh, okay. Um, best restaurant for a good meal.
My favorite restaurant at the moment in Calgary is Singapore Sam's.
Oh, nice. What inspires you each day?
That's a good question. I think it changes day to day. Sometimes it's nature, sometimes it's certain patients that I've interacted with, sometimes it's my boyfriend, sometimes it's my cats. It changes from day to day.
All right. Burgers or burritos?
Burgers.
Okay. Favorite food?
Mm, I might have to say pizza.
Ah, okay.
Hmm.
Okay. You said earlier you love to cook. What best a favorite food to cook?
Probably a stir fry that has a nice mix of spicy, savory, salty, and a little bit of sweet.
Okay. Okay. The best artist you love to listen to?
I've been listening to a lot of movie scores, and I really like the composer Max Richter.
Oh, nice. All right. Best candy flavor?
Best which flavor?
Best candy flavor?
Candy flavor. Mm, it's a tie between strawberry and grape.
Okay. 6 seconds left. Coke or Pepsi?
Pepsi.
All right. I think that's it. Thank. All right. Thank you, Carissa. Okay. All right. All right. Let's do a screenshot. Ready? Are you ready? All right. Right. Thank you so much, Carissa.
All right, yeah, thanks, Nigel. Thanks so much. I think it's so fun to like talk about what I do and increase people's awareness of dietitians. So really appreciate your invitation.
All right. All right. So okay. So I don't know okay. So I guess I'll see. I guess I hope we see each other again. There's some I think I could ask you more questions about what you do.
Yeah, yeah, we'll talk sometime in the future. I don't know when, but I'm sure we'll stay in touch.
All right. Once again, thank you, Chris.
All right, have a good day.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Okay, bye.